One of my favorite illustrations, it's called square wheels. Do you see yourself? Have you been part of a team like that ever? Part of an organization? Maybe your family. Sometimes I think that. I like this because it illustrates, look, we're busy, right? We're working hard. But we've got, and you can see that they are as well. And sometimes the square wheels are there because, well, that's what we've been told to use, right? Or we think that that's what's available to us. Or we're too busy to stop and look and see that maybe we have a more effective option right in front of us. Or I've had people at workshops tell me, well, we make those, we're not allowed to use them, which I always think is kind of funny. So I like to use this illustration actually as a way to introduce the idea that I'm not going to tell you anything that you don't really already know, and you certainly know deep down, you've had a lot of experiences with this. But what I am going to do is sort of help you decide, hey, what's a round wheel and what's a square wheel? Because I don't know about you, but I'd rather have a round wheel, right? Would you rather have a round wheel? It's a lot more effective, makes it a lot more comfortable to do. Look at this. Our organizations today, we have an awful lot that we do offer people. Recognizing employees, that's easy, right? That's what gift certificates are for. That's why we bring in pizza or donuts or all these other sorts of things. Well, the reality is if it was so easy, why does research tell us today that more than 2/3 of employees don't feel engaged at the workplace? That's a problem, don't you think? I mean, that's a problem. And you might think, well, yeah, we know the obvious reasons for that. But you know what? Employee appreciation and recognition is almost always in the top 3 reasons. And that's something we can do something about. All of us can. Our team members, not just managers and so on. And so we want to look at that. Now, if you look at those things, which are round wheel approaches? Which are square wheel approaches? Can you tell the difference? I'm hoping right now you can't really, because that's the point of me being here, to talk to you a little bit about. Let me help you figure out which of these. Look, we only have limited time, money, and energy. I say this to my students all the time, and in life in general, let alone in the workplace. Time, money, energy. I want to do what works, right? I want to do something that's really effective. And I'm not at all saying that these things aren't useful, important, certainly for recruitment, retention. They're fun. It's not that at all. It's what really works. And let me go to another story here of that I've actually heard firsthand many times. I've heard it in workshops. I've had my own experiences with it, and that is of the holiday turkey. Any of you work for a company where you got a turkey at the holidays or something? Right now they give a certificate a lot, but you know what? This is, I think, in a way, a sad story, but a company wants to do something nice for its employees. So it says, you know what? Let's give them a holiday turkey. We'll buy everybody a turkey. Now, you're my employees. Do you really care about a turkey that much? Probably not, but are you going to take it? Yes, absolutely. If you're going to offer me a turkey, I'll take the turkey. So the first year, we got a turkey. Next year, the holidays are coming around. What do you think everyone's waiting for? The holiday turkey. So the company gives the turkey again. Next year, guess what? We start having grumblings. Well, I don't eat turkey. How come we don't have a ham? You know, this is true. I've heard from a company who had a family-run business, that the family members had to wait to get their turkeys because everyone kept thinking they got the bigger turkeys. Yeah. Now look, we can laugh. Human behavior is always entertaining, right? But we get this story because we've been there, right? Come on, we've been there on either end of that sort of story. And so next thing you know, you got a manager of the turkey program, you know, and I literally heard that they try to get the exact same size turkeys, you know, to give to everybody so that they wouldn't have that sort of inequity. That's ridiculous. It's not that, again, a turkey is a bad thing. I really want to highlight this, that the question isn't whether this is right or wrong. I mean, I would argue it's a nice thing to do, right? It's not whether it's good or bad. Almost all those things I had on the previous chart, these are good things. My question is, when I talk about employee appreciation or employee recognition, is does it work? And when I say does it work, I mean, does it refocus people back on their task, on the customer, on the patient, you know, on their client, on their coworkers, on their team, on their own attitude, on their own behaviors that they bring to work, that they engage in work, on the shared vision. Hopefully they're working towards creating a shared team vision. If it's not doing that, then I question it, and I call that a square wheel. Okay, so round wheel are things that bring people back to focusing on their work, on their team, and so on. And the square wheel approaches, or what I guess you could call the turkey approach, actually pulls people's attention away. Does that make sense? I mean, it's distracting. It creates potential problems. Many people who are engaged in employee recognition programs say, boy, they backfired. You know, I had this great program and it just blew up in our face. And I think, again, because they're missing some of the most obvious stuff is what I'm going to talk about next, which is what do we have to have first? Then all those other things could come into play and be a lot of fun and be engaging, but you can't do that if you're ignoring these next kind of few things that I'd like to talk about. One of them would be giving regular feedback. And this is not going to sound again, earth-shattering, but what is feedback? Do we actually hear about the work that we do on a daily basis and the impact that it has? We have constructive feedback, which a lot of us are scared of because that's, the hard stuff. But there's reinforcing feedback. Why don't we do that more often? Reinforcing feedback might just be me saying, hey, Sam, I saw you helping out the new guy today. That's going to really help him feel like a part of the team. That's feedback. I've just reinforced a particular behavior that's important to our team. We don't have a habit in many organizations of doing this on a real regular basis. Years ago, I used to invite speakers to my class, and I often would give them a thank you note and a College of Business mug. It's nice. You know what I do now? Now I invite speakers, and I ask my students when they're finished to write feedback for that person. What did it mean to you? What did you learn? Insights? Do you have stories of your own? And then I compile that and I send it in an email. And I thank the speaker for giving of their time to the class, and here's some thoughts of the students. I've been amazed at then the feedback I get from the speaker. Things like, wow, this is humbling, or I had no idea that what I said would resonate in that way, or that particular point was so important, right? Or that story, or thanks for them for sharing a few stories of their own to me. That's powerful, right? That, to be honest, works well because then they want to come back to my class too. And so it's a really, really powerful thing that we don't give enough credit for. I have a friend who recently stepped down from a job to a new job, and she was telling me the other day that she has the company recognition on the shelf, which again, I'm not demeaning that, that's important. But what she looks at every day is the bulletin board full of all the cards and notes from friends and colleagues and coworkers, right, telling her what she's meant to them. That's the meaningful stuff. And sometimes we just forget that that's the gift. That's the recognition. I often say that we should have a quit day. Everybody should quit. And then, everyone could act towards you like you're leaving, so then you find out how great you were, Because I've heard from executives who literally said, if I knew people thought about me like this, I wouldn't be leaving. And I thought, oh, how sad. That's really, really sad. So it's one thing to play around with. Another one, though, is being very specific. If you notice, I even put this up as a separate arrow because if you never hear thank you, it feels good. If you never heard good job, it feels good. But I tell you, people after a while will say, thank you. Okay, thank you. Thank you for what? Like, what am I doing that's meaningful or a good job? So the more specific you can be in giving feedback or recognizing others, the better, I think the more effective, the more round wheel it would be to be very specific. I had a dentist once who used to say, ignore your teeth and they'll go away. Think about what that means for a minute. It means you got to pay attention to the things that you value, that you want to keep. And so sometimes there's behaviors that you or your children or whoever in your life engage in that are really valuable to you. You never comment on it. They never know. And so they stop doing them and they do other things. So often when I ask for feedback from students, I'll say, make sure you tell me what you like so I can keep doing that, right? Because we usually hear about what people don't like. So being as specific as you can is very powerful. And I sometimes think that employee who almost never gets feedback in any way, maybe because they're not that great, so no one's going to say good job. But you know what? Maybe their attitude or the fact that they have great attendance, maybe that is the one thing that you could comment on very specifically. That can make their year. And you know what? That bleeds into other behaviors. So I always say experiment a little bit around this. And with kids, it works really very nicely. Another thing would be ask for feedback. Many in this audience, you're working sometimes with people who are much more experienced. I didn't want to say older, but that too, probably, right? Some of you manage people that are a lot older than you, so it might be awkward to go in and say, I want to give you some feedback, right? Actually, I would encourage you maybe don't do that unless that's your job. But sometimes asking for feedback. So you can say, I'm the new team leader here for the last, few months. Can you give me an idea of what's one thing I could do that would make people participate more in our team meetings? Now you're asking somebody that they're not being set up, because if you just said, how am I doing, right? Come on, people say fine. You're not really being serious. They'll take it that way. So ask for something very specifically. They're likely to give you an answer. You've shown respect to them. You've acknowledged they have experience, right? And so on. It's a really valuable thing, and it also is helping you develop. So think about asking for feedback more than we might do. And you know what? Look for opportunities to celebrate team successes. I'm sure all over the country, but I know in the Midwest, we love to have food at work a lot. Pizzas, donuts, any opportunity, right? And I say, don't bring in a cake or donuts or pizza. Or most of the time, try to tie it to some team success. Because managers will tell me, they say, well, we bring food in all the time, and people just take it for granted. And I suggest, hey, if you're bringing pizza in because you're trying to reward or recognize your team, then say so. So I would bring pizza in and say, hey, everybody, I'm bringing pizza today. I want us to sit and celebrate the fact that we just made that deadline. We had 2 weeks of a hard time. We didn't kill each other, and we're ready to, we're ready to move on. So let's dig in. Let's have some pizza. All of a sudden, you see the difference? All of a sudden now that pizza, it's not just pizza, it's, let's celebrate our success as a team. Really important to do that. And I focus a lot on team celebration because you can do that together and more publicly. There's a lot of articles out there that will tell you to always recognize publicly. I would tell you, be careful. I have 20 years of examples of people doing that and then get it backfiring because maybe I saw Mary do this particular thing and I'm commenting on it, but 10 other people did it too, but I didn't see them, right? And so they're feeling now a little off because I'm highlighting something that Mary did. So I'd say err on private recognition. What's wrong with just going up to a person after the fact or, sending them the email or a text? I think we're all okay with that. I was at a workshop once where this woman told me that her boss, who she'd never really gotten any feedback from before, just sent her an email one day that thanked her for keeping the scheduling tight for clinic day. No big deal, you'd think, except she then pulled out of her pocket the printed email, and she had it, she carried it around. Which again gives me, I went, wow, look how powerful that was. So it doesn't have to be a big deal. People just want to hear that they matter, that they care. I put this one up as well because if we do celebrate service anniversaries, and I will be having my own in a couple of weeks, which will be very nice, do it sincerely. We have an event here, but I've heard many times from people that they'll go to work at esteemed organizations. They'll go to work and they'll find a 10-year pin on their desk. And again, I cannot tell you how many times I've heard that story. And I'm like, really? That pin means nothing. How about 15 seconds, even at a team meeting, to say, hey, Dave, 10 years, wow. Thanks for your commitment to our organization, and we're glad that you've, stuck it out for 10 years. Here on behalf of the organization, this pin just represents our gratitude. Now, does that pin all of a sudden kind of mean something? Yeah. So be sincere and don't throw away these opportunities. I love this idea of creating shared team vision. And I have built-in autonomy there as well because this is an opportunity for people to get involved, to have some say in what they do. And shared team vision might be Pike Place Fish Market, right? The guys who throw fish, right? Be world famous. Cool. And you know what? It's not just that vision. That vision helps them decide how are we going to do that? What behaviors are okay? How should we act with each other? I worked with a housekeeping team at a children's hospital once. Now they're housekeeping. They feel fairly invisible. They don't feel that people are appreciating the work that they do that much, right? But they sat down and tried to create their own shared team vision that hopefully aligns with the organizational vision. And you tell me if this doesn't make a difference to them. This is what they came up with after several iterations. This is housekeepers at a children's hospital. This is what they came up with. Because of us, parents only worry about their sick kids. That's powerful. Nothing really changes, in terms of their own visibility and their own, but they had a greater sense of what it means to do what they do. So really interesting stories and conversations can be built in around that. Actually, in that same institution, I was working with a group of human resource and education types. Okay, so they're not on the front line. And I think they were actually even talking about team vision as well. When somebody said, hey, I heard a story the other day, I want to tell you. And she said she heard it from a nurse. And it's a sad story. She said a mother was sitting with her baby, and her baby had died. And she was holding the baby, and she was having a hard time giving the baby up. And eventually a doctor was able to go over and sort of said, may I hold your baby? And the mother then was able to let the baby go. And the next day, the mother called the hospital and said, I'm calling to see if this doctor, if so-and-so is there. And they said, well, she's not, but we'll have her call you back. And the mother said, no, that's okay. She doesn't need to. I just wanted to know if she was real, because I thought she might have been an angel. Oh, so even I've told that a million times. It still hits me. The room is kind of teary-eyed, of course. But you know what? Again, why I'm telling you the story is they were like, we want to hear these stories. How come we haven't heard those? We're up in HR. We're not hearing the front line stuff. I mean, that's powerful. That's why we're here. That's why we work in this organization. And so they committed. They said, we want more of those sort of stories. We want to know how we're doing. And then somebody added the statistics of how many thousands of children that particular institution helped and saved on a yearly basis. So it ended from kind of being sad to being, wow, optimistic. We do a lot of good work here. And so I put that on here because I've heard that over and over again. We want to know how we're doing. When we hear stories of students, next year, 10 years, I'm telling you right now, we share those stories. I will go to the office and say, hey, remember so-and-so? This is what they're doing now. We love that. We want to hear. So some interesting stuff there. Now I'm going to ask you to think about how can you build these things in. And one way we use this thing called check-ins. Just anytime you meet as a group, just plan a minute or two for everyone to just take a turn to share appreciation, to share a story, to ask for help, to whatever, share their own wishes, hopes, and dreams. It can take seconds, right? But it builds it in as part of the culture to be able to do that and gives an opportunity. Because so often we want to, and then we forget, or we just don't get around to doing it. So on that last note, we sometimes spend a lot of time coming up with interesting incentives and new programs, but we're kind of missing the point, okay, and missing the obvious when we do that. So thank you very much.